Welcome to the Reconnected Podcast, a home for sharing, understanding, and growth for the retail grocery store industry. During each episode, we will meet an amazing member of our community as we learn about their story and jointly explore the intricacies and challenges of our supply chain. Through it all, we'll remember and honor that everything starts with the real people who spend so much of their lives supporting the retail food supply chain. We will bring together the voices of manufacturers, distributors, and retailers as we journey together to help our industry reconnect. My name is Luke Abbott, and I'm excited to have you join us. Okay. Welcome, everyone, to the Reconnected Podcast, where we're seeking to have really authentic conversations as we get to know people, the real people of our supply chain, and also discuss how we can do this better in our supply chain. So today we have Alex Bear, who's been a friend of mine for a very long time, back when I used to own Monterey Provision. He joined me on a jaunt out to Colorado for one of my first presentations to Whole Foods. We brought a number of our brands, and we became close on that trip. And I think that trip was probably 7-8 years ago, maybe. I don't even know how many years ago it was. We're aging well.
Too many years ago.
Aging well, Alex. And
thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to give you a little space to maybe share some of your story. How did you get here? And I may politely interrupt you to go a little bit deeper into something, but I'd like to give you the floor and provide your introduction.
Cool. Wow. Well, first, thank you for giving me the platform just to share my story and about me and about the brand, and most importantly, how we can really help the CPG community and give back, because that's really what I'm focused heavily on now, given that I've been in this industry for too long. Keep on using the words too long, for 11 years. And I met you it was about 7.5, 8 years ago. I still remember that at Whole Foods over there in the Rockies region. So a little bit about me, born and raised in Southern California. I started fresh out of college just in sales. I worked at Aflac, and I'll try to keep this somewhat short and to the point. Worked at Aflac for about 7 years. Just did sales. I did B2B sales. I'd walk into offices, knock on doors, and I would meet with CFOs, CEOs, VPs of finance, HR directors, HR managers to bring in Aflac insurance. Then in 2010, I went into more of a nonprofit work. So I raised money for the children's hospitals of Los Angeles and also Atlanta.
That's so cool.
Yeah. So Aflac has a cause called the Aflac Cancer Center, which is built within the Children's Hospital of Atlanta, because they're based in Columbus, Georgia, right near Atlanta. And so I got very interested in supporting that cause, but also doing something fun at the same time. So I started Karaoke for a Cure, a 501c3, because I love singing, and we had karaoke events and raised money for children. So we raised about $35,000 over 2 events. I did that from 2010, 2011. And then I figured out that I just wasn't really making enough money to support myself, hence the word nonprofit. And I decided to pivot from that. I went and I got into the food industry through almost accidentally. One of my mentors said, "Hey, do you want to work with this small company in Los Angeles that distributes honey that has superfoods in it?" And they were before its time. It was a product called still in existence, called Virgin Raw Foods. Kind of a weird name, but the product itself is really, really great. And it has 23 superfoods in it, still on the market today, I believe, if you Google that. And I got introduced to the food industry and superfoods really before, and adaptogens before it was even big, back in 2012, 2013. So I did that for a year, and then I founded Genius Juice in 2014. And we just crossed our 10-year anniversary at Genius Juice.
Congratulations. That's huge.
Which is, again, just went really, really fast, and a lot of work, a lot of stress, a lot of great things, a lot of bad things happened.
We'll dig more into that as we go.
Yeah, but essentially that's my story. And then now I do crowdfunding consulting. I help people raise money online, and then I just do general consulting, and then still run Genius Juice as well.
You're a busy man. And can you tell us a little bit about your family life?
Yeah, exactly. That definitely did not cover that in detail. So I am married, been married for almost 7 years now, since 2017. Met my wife in 2012, and we have a beautiful, beautiful boy. His name is Aaron. I'm sure you've seen some posts
I
and
have
photos and
on
stuff of
LinkedIn.
him.
Yep.
And yeah, he is now, as of this recording, turning 15 months old, and he just started walking last week.
Yay.
So he walked over to me, and then I cried watching him walk over to me for the first time, and it was really powerful. And having children is, to me, like life's biggest gift among
Mhm.
over anything else, work, accomplishments. Just having kids and looking at them and taking care of them and loving them is the best.
That's so beautiful. It's such a centering thing in my life, right? It helps you understand what really matters, right? It's in some ways business and all this is kind of like the game of life, and what's real is family, and especially these children who it depends so much on us, right? And they bring us so much joy. And you were blessed. You started walking when Aaron started working when he was 15 months, you said?
Yeah, 15 months. He was crawling a lot,
Hmm.
and he would stand up, and I knew he could walk, but he just didn't have the confidence. And then
But
one
that's
day,
good.
just
That's
walked.
good. Once they're walking, like you've lost control. So it's like you were able to delay that a little bit, which is
Yeah, had more
fantastic.
time
Right?
to
Yeah, more time on
prepare.
the really cute, doesn't really move around too much stage. So that's fantastic. Congratulations to you and your amazing family life, and
Thank you.
really do enjoy your posts on LinkedIn where you shared the journey with Aaron and with your family. It's cool. And maybe before we dig in too much, I sense that you and I are similar in terms of our approach to like the LinkedIn community, for example. And I sense you're pretty vulnerable. You're sharing what's happening, the ups and the downs, and um, how was that for you to when you maybe your first and earlier posts when you started being a bit more open? Because LinkedIn is known to be more like business, that more buttoned up. Um, can you share some of that journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what was missing, what is missing largely on LinkedIn, and now it's becoming more commonplace, is just being really real and
Hmm.
like just really authentic about what's actually going on in our personal lives, and also in our business.
Hmm.
And so, like I've seen your, recent post about you had health challenges, right? From,
Hmm.
working really hard and, and putting your heart and soul and everything into your business. So sharing that is beautiful because it gets it out there and it makes you feel better, kind of cleanses your soul.
Hmm.
And then other
Yes.
people can really understand what, more about you and your past,
Hmm.
and not only the great things, but also the challenging things in life. So in the last year and a half or so, coincidentally, when things got a lot harder for CPG brands
Yes.
in this environment, I started sharing more about, you know what, it's great that we got into these big retailers, but it just sucks. Like this sucks. This is really hard. The costs are going up. Freight costs
Hmm.
are going up. It's hard to compete when you don't have a lot of money and you're the small guy. I think a lot of small brands have been squeezed out in the last year and a half, and many
Yep.
businesses have gone out of business. And the thing that really bothered me, which is why sharing to me is, again, it's cathartic. It helps me
Yeah.
just to feel better and share my thoughts and feelings and emotions,
Yep.
is that like, is that people that work so hard and put everything into their business, and all their, not only all their money, but all their time, their blood, their sweat, their tears, their stress, sacrificing their family time to focus on their business at 12, 11 o'clock at night,
Hmm.
like I have for many, many years. And at the end of the road, or as they're going down the journey, they are not succeeding, or they're
Yeah.
having challenges, or they're getting beat by a big brand that just copies what they're doing and they have way more distribution, or they're getting squeezed by different partners in the industry that are not really great partners, whether it's
Hmm.
a distributor, whether it's a retailer that's not taking care of you and charging you all these fees and free fills and slotting fees, and it's just too much for a small brand. And I know this exists in this business, it's reality, but sometimes it gets these companies take advantage of the small
Hmm.
guy because the small guy wants to get into this retailer. They want to get into this
Yeah.
distributor. to grow their business and appease their investors. And now they're getting squeezed. They're spending all this money that they don't have. Their margins are getting crushed. And
Mm-hmm.
before you know it, within a couple years, you're out of money and you're out of business because you can't raise more money. So that's what inspired me to share more on LinkedIn, which is not only the great things like launching in Costco or
Yep.
Target or whatever, but also the challenges that all of these brands have, especially small brands, but even larger brands
Yeah, more and more.
have as
I
well
know a
right
number of
now.
them are struggling right now, and yeah,
Yeah.
the environment has changed a lot. Yeah, no, I think, in terms of like the sharing on LinkedIn and sharing the journey, I've noticed, at least in my life, that it's easy to tell stories about what's happening in other people's lives and in their business. And when, to your point, when I'm seeing is the Costco launch and the Sprouts launch and the Whole Foods launch, and everything's great and there's smiles, and it's like it first off, I know it's not true. It's everything isn't always perfect, but this is what the person is choosing to share, and that's their choice, and there's no judgment on that. The reality, though, is that we talk about this idea of the CPG community or LinkedIn community, or LinkedIn CPG community, and we're not really a community if we're not really fully known, right? If we're not sharing the journey, and if we try to curate this picture of our lives as being perfect, and it doesn't really serve the community in some way, right? It leads to people feeling imposter syndrome, or that they're like, what am I doing wrong? Even to shame and lots
Mhm.
of other things, right? And
Right.
and I think it's such a gift what you give to the community when you share the, kind of pull back the curtain and share what's really happening, right?
Exactly.
It's a
Yeah,
gift.
we're exactly. And and that you're not alone,
You're not
right?
alone, right?
Like
That's community.
what you're going through,
Yeah.
I'm going through, thousands of other brands are going through. And, an imposter syndrome is a really good point where you see a success.
Yep.
You think, why don't I have that? What's wrong with
Wrong
me?
with
There's
me.
nothing
Yeah.
wrong with you because most brands are struggling just like you.
Yeah.
So,
I agree. We've all been through it. And then the word that always comes to my mind is encouragement. And I remember multiple times, especially in growing Monterey, where I was like at the at the edge. I'll just put it that way. And where someone came into my life and just, without agenda, poured in love and shared their journeys, were vulnerable with me, just said some supportive words. And to me, that's the idea of what this community, like, that I think that I think this is what you and I believe this community needs to
mhm,
be about, that we're there for
exactly.
each other. And when
Exactly.
there's a need, you always say this to me too, like, hey, if someone needs anything, like, come call me. Like, I'm here. I'll share the journey. And I, even before you started helping brands with raising capital, you joined a couple of my brands who were struggling with capital just without any fees at all, just to share your journey and how you raised and crowdfunding. And, just, I don't know, there's just something about that, right? It's like this, I don't want to say believe in karma, but it feels kind of karmic, right? We're serving, and we receive too as part of that serving.
Exactly. And I think there's something kind of this higher consciousness, I
Hmm.
would call it, or level of how you feel and how you're happy when you help others without expecting anything in return. And it's an indescribable feeling. And so like, operating from a place of having to make money off everything may benefit you in the short term. You're like, oh, I'm making more money, great. But then you're not truly satisfied and fulfilled because you're basically helping people for
Hmm.
money, which is good to do. You need to
Yep.
make a living and support your family. But there's also going to be times, many times, where you just want to help someone just for the sake of helping someone because it's the right thing to do and you
Hmm.
feel good and then they feel good and it's a win-win. And when I first started, even in the first several years of Genius Juice, so many people, such as yourself, Luke, and others, lifted me up when I was really down and helped me out. I mean, you didn't have to invite me out to the Rockies, right? To
Yeah.
be in front of
Mm.
Whole Foods because, at the end of the day, you were like, yeah, if you go through us or go through with someone else, all good. I just want to help you because I love your brand and Alex, I
Hmm.
love you. So I think like operating from that mindset benefits us in many ways on a karmic level.
Hmm.
Typically, when you feel better as a person, you're more complete, more opportunities are going to come your way from the universe as well. So it benefits you long term to help others.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. And it just adds to the richness of this life. I'm curious if, your relatively new father is having Aaron, in your life changed how you operate and vulnerability or just how you see the world? And how's that affected you?
Yeah, I still have, my demons that I'm fighting for sure, no matter what. I've had anger. A lot of people don't even know this about me. I've mentioned it in past posts, like anger challenges where I just get really upset when something doesn't go right. I'm not like Hulk angry, like I'm, knocking down walls and punching walls or anything like that, but I get internally really upset, which basically does not serve the other person. It certainly doesn't serve you or me,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm just damaging my own body by being upset. So there's like things I've been working on a lot, just not only to earn more money, because Genius Juice has been challenging, supporting my family,
Mm-hmm.
but also having a better perspective on life to not take things so seriously all the
Mm-hmm.
time and not get really upset or overly dramatic when something doesn't go right, or if someone upsets me, which just happens in daily life. Someone's going to do something that will upset you that's out of your control. So I think I realize that many things are out of our control.
Yep.
And if it's out of our control, all we can control is how we react to those situations or to those people. And the better we react to it, and if we take time to not, when I say react, I would say take time to reflect before you
Mm-hmm.
react.
Yeah.
That's going to better
Mind,
serve
mind,
me.
mindfulness. I
And
agree. That's
mindfulness. Yeah.
beautifully said. And I've read your posts on the anger issues and that you've struggled with and that you've worked through. And again, this is that vulnerability because so many people do struggle. It's something just maybe a side note. I have a life coach I meet with every week, and we were talking about for men in our society today, and he was I don't know if I agree with him, but he was saying that men thousands of years ago, we were like essentially predators. Our job was to go out and kill for the and bring back the animal right back to the community for the family to eat. And in today's society, so much of what would have been really advantageous, like masculine traits, right, and these instincts, they don't serve us the same way in this modern world. And it's like really, and we might think that we're broken or something's like just fundamentally wrong. And really, I think what you're sharing is like, yeah, this is kind of how I'm built, and I'm learning how to have a better relationship and have mindfulness. So I have a choice if how I respond to things, but I don't think it's denying that in my mind, I don't think it's right for us to deny kind of how we're built, and that
Mhm.
it's actually there's some gifts in this too because maybe this brings up anything for you, but anger is really about bringing about change, right? And change that needs to happen. And thank God there's people in this world who've gotten angry about things and the status quo of the world, right? Maybe there's like how you respond to that anger, but anger is actually a really healthy, and I mean all emotions are neither wrong or right. They're just emotions. The goal is to be mindful with them. Does any of that resonate with you?
Yeah, I mean, as human beings, our DNA is we're gonna have emotions. We're gonna feel emotions. Like
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be anger, there's gonna be jealousy, there's going to be, wanting to whatever, make more money. There's going to be sad, depressed, like all these
Mm-hmm.
things we're going to go through. And it's how we channel that into something positive
Mm-hmm.
and parlay that, and also how we communicate. It feels really important because even when someone, upsets me or there's something that's going on, I've learned too that if I approach it by reacting and I'm in that moment of being angry,
Right.
it's going to come out in a way that's very intense.
Mm-hmm.
And the other person, their walls are going to go up and be like, I'm not even going to listen to you. Then I'm going to start yelling at you. And then now it's just two people trying to step on each other's neck and then nothing gets solved. So I think like having being able to step away from it,
Mm-hmm.
calm down, let the emotions kind of settle, and then approach it in a way that's logical and
Mm-hmm.
also, paving things over and
Mm-hmm.
being a little more, diplomatic
Mm-hmm.
when speaking to someone is really going to get the message across. And I think that's the most important
Mm-hmm.
thing is like we want to be listened to and we want to be heard.
Yep.
And we're not going to be listened to if we approach it with too much anger or
No.
being upset. And so like that's really a big point of handling anything in life. Even if you're wronged and you're in the
Yep.
right,
Yep.
you still have to approach it in a really calm way to be heard by the other person. If the other person doesn't listen to you, then
Mm-hmm.
they're not meant to be in your life. So
Yeah, I love that. And anger is a message, right? It isn't you. And so then you're the opportunity you have is to either like let that message become the messenger or to listen to what the message is and then to react as you choose, right? And I think that's the break point. And then
yeah,
and as a side note, what I'm really working on is actually connecting to my anger. Like I growing up, my mom used to work three jobs and wasn't there, and I was raising my 2 year younger sister, and I would get really, I remember getting very angry with her, and I remember realizing that this anger didn't have an outlet and would probably result in my sister and I really, her killing each other or something. And so I shut down anger 100%. And I'm working to reconnect to that. And it's something that maybe you could even teach me about because it's something that I'm scared about anger and what would happen if my anger comes out. And you showing that you've been able to make friends with your anger, if you will, and even use it as a tool for good. But this mindfulness you're employing gives me hope. So it's just interesting as you share, right? It's like we can say anger is a problem, but no, it's not. It's really a gift in many
yeah,
ways.
yeah. It's what resists persists, right? Like, in The
Hmm.
Secret,
Yep,
which I'm a big fan of that book.
me too.
And like, yeah, just acknowledging that you have it. And then also just telling people like, be like, yeah, no, I'm pissed. Like I'm angry.
Hmm.
Listen, I want to talk to you about this and I want to see what we can do to resolve this. And, I'm just being honest with you about how I feel, but I want to
Hmm.
approach this in a way to where we can solve something today and not just get angry and yell at each other because that's not good for me and that's not good for you. And then being around the right people in your life is also really key.
Yeah.
Where I can't remember, there was a quote from, it was like a very famous quote, and I can't remember who said it. I wish I had that like in my head on who said it, but then the biggest change in my life, this is in the quote, is not being around toxic people,
Hmm.
right? And that's like having the right people around you that if something goes wrong, they'll listen to you. And I have a life coach as well, Dan Carruthers. I applaud you for
Okay.
having a life coach to
Mm.
express all this. But I think like the biggest thing I've learned is from a book called It's That Simple. He told me to read this book. It's like 100-page book. One of those things you can crack it open at any part of the book, the beginning, middle, end. You don't have to go in order, right?
Yeah.
And there's different lessons and sections, kind of like The Secret or kind of
Hmm.
like the what is that book? Life is Now, or I forget the name of the book, but
Okay.
um, when I read that, the biggest thing I learned is how to truly listen to people and remove the ego,
Yeah.
like not wanting to be the one to have
Hmm.
the last
Be
word.
right. Yep.
Yeah, like not making yourself. Too many times we make ourselves right and we want to make the other person wrong.
Yep.
And that leads down a path of ego, anger, emotions,
Hmm.
and typically where the relationship is not really connected
Right.
and it gets kind of fragmented because you just want to be right. And when you're trying to be right, usually you make everyone else wrong.
Yep, I agree. And one of the I want to maybe amplify it and the idea of not letting your ego get in the way to me suggests humility, right? And I gosh, another book I love is The Ideal Team Player by Patrick Lencioni, and he talks about like culture is like the core of a company, right? And ultimately, and I think it's the core of a family and everything, a successful family, right? Is this idea of hungry, humble, people smart, and humble is interesting because I can't teach you humility, right? It's something that you have to learn over your life, how to realize that you don't know everything, and that the more you think you do, the more closed you are, and how small your life will be, right? And I think that's exactly what you're saying. Get the ego out of the way and be open and curious, right? Is like a higher level of energy in my mind. So,
Exactly. Yeah, being curious and having fun.
yep. Yes,
Like
I
like
remind myself
that's
all the time about that. Have fun. Okay. Be playful. Like, yeah,
exactly.
it makes
Listen,
life so much
we
more
have one
fun.
life.
Yes. Yes. Well, great. I wanted to spend a little more time on your company. And as you
Sure.
know, I invited you to that Whole Foods meeting because I was a personal fan of you and your product, and I love the simplicity of the ingredient deck, and I'm curious. It's been a long journey now. Could you share with us some of the kind of the highest points of this journey? Like what were like the moments that you were on top of the world as you've been growing this company?
Yeah. And I want to definitely ask you the same question when it comes to your career as well and where you are now with Be Driven. So to be continued on that.
Yes.
Um, so I think the highest point, I'll go with the highest point and the lowest point. I want to
Let's do
get
it.
both
Let's do
those
it.
in.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about the lowest point
So,
too. Yes.
so I'm gonna start with the lowest point. The lowest point was in 2016 when in 2014 we made it ourselves, the product. We make coconut smoothies
Mm.
with coconut water and coconut meat, which is right now on hold and not in the market. And then we also make nootropic wellness shots as well, which came out in the last 6 or 7 months. So those are our two product lines that we have,
Mm.
and highly functional, very clean. And the smoothies are literally a cracked open coconut with coconut water and coconut meat. So 2014 and 15 was kind of ramping it and figuring things out. And then we went to a co-packer, and unfortunately, we got booted out of our co-packer in 2016. And then the product was also copied by someone
Mm.
that was kind of close to us. And so, like, that was a
Wow.
1-2 kind of double whammy. It's like we can't make the product right now. There's no one. It's a very specialized product. It can't just be made at a canning facility that, makes fruit juice, right? It's a
Hmm.
very specialized process with real coconut, requires certain licenses and also certain machinery to handle low acid, which is like
Right. That's
coconut
so hard.
almond.
Yep.
Yeah, low acid manufacturing is really hard to find with a low minimum order quantity. The larger ones, like, Owen and Super Coffee, they're making so many bottles they can
Yep.
go anywhere.
Yep.
Brand like ours, that's in Southern California, there's really hardly anywhere to go. So we got booted out, and then on top of that, someone copied it, and we were off the shelf for about almost a year.
Wow.
And all the retailers, we were in, I think, 7 regions of Whole Foods. We were in about, at that time, it seemed big, but I know in the big picture, it was pretty small, but we were in about 500 stores. And we just worked for 2.5, 3 years to get into all those stores and innovate and everything we went through for 3 years. And then we just lost it all within a month, discontinued
What a
everywhere.
shame. Oh.
And the hardest part was keeping in touch with all of the retailers, explaining what's going on and saying, we basically, this is not our fault. Like, we did everything we could, but we got booted, it didn't work out with our co-packer and blah, blah, blah. And so, but we're coming back and we're going to find a way to bring this product back because
Hmm.
we know that it's a high velocity product, our original, that it was doing as well or nearly as well as the top selling SKUs for Rebel and Koya and the rest of the pack. So we want to bring this product back because it's special and it's very healthy and it's clean and it tastes great. And something happened that I didn't expect, and I'll get to the best, the highest point for us. But I didn't expect this. The retailers were understanding, and I had a great relationship with the buyers, and they just said, Alex, you've always been honest with us. You've told us ahead of
Hmm.
time about this out of stock issue.
You
Most
communicated, Alex.
I communicated.
Instead of hiding, right? You're like, no, I have a problem. Let me tell you about it.
Yeah, exactly. And I said it ahead of time. And also I told him exactly what was going on. I didn't say,
Hmm.
oh, we'll be back in stock. I literally told him this is what happened.
Right.
And by having that kind of vulnerability, a lot of retailers actually felt sorry for me,
Hmm.
and they're like, man, you worked hard for 3 years. I remember you coming in 20, like Bristol Farms,
Yeah.
Roger Arachiga is like, I remember you coming
Roger.
in 2014 and like you
Yes.
presented this. We were the first big chain, Southern California chain to bring in your product, and now you don't have it. That makes me sad. I'm cheering for you. I want you to bring this thing back because it was a great seller. And then the minute that it came back, which in 2017, we found a new partner. We
Hmm.
started bottling in Thailand, and this partner lifted us up and said, you know what? We're gonna put in a bottling line for you.
Wow.
and for some other customers that are also interested. But we're going to expedite this thing. This is from the owner, and we're going to put in some money. And so they invested, they
Wow.
built the bottling line, and they brought the smoothie back. And he said, I'm doing this because not only do I love the product, Alex, but this is from the CEO, but I also really believe in you and what you could do with this brand. And his read for that at that time was right? Which is we went from 0 stores, we were in
Hmm.
500 down to 0. We brought it all the way back. We went in upwards on our high point in 2021 to 3,000 stores. Plus, we got on Shark Tank. Plus, we secured a really great co-manufacturer also in the United States to have local manufacturing plus manufacturing
Hmm.
overseas. And they invested and got some significant equity in Genius Juice. So
What
at
a
that
win.
time, it really worked out. And then the high time was the Shark Tank, and then more investment. And then we
Yeah.
also got into many, many more stores to really give a shining light to this great product, which
Hmm.
is what I wanted to do. Is just this is a great freaking product. Let's get it out there and get it into onto the store shelves.
That's so beautiful. And by the way, you are the first brand founder that's ever been on the podcast, and it was intentional about
Nice.
having you because I've you're you've had a very public journey and a very it wasn't a Goldilocks experience for you. It was
Oh, not at all.
no, and like when you found out about the co-manufacturer, you said your co-manufacturer actually decided to dump you and went to this person that was close to you that copied you. They started doing their product instead. Is that what happened?
Yeah, essentially this other entity decided to make the product, and they made it through this co-manufacturer and other areas as well. But they basically wanted to bring the product into a certain chain of stores
Hmm.
and with their relationship, and it didn't work out, for
Okay.
them. And so, but anyway, so that's kind of water under the bridge, and
Yeah.
we moved forward and made the best of the situation.
Yeah. And I'm curious, digging a little bit deeper and not spending too much time on the downside, but maybe kind of the
Sure.
last area of focus here. How did you deal with that? I mean, I know what happened afterward, but there must have been a period of like grieving or and anger, and then like how was that for you? What was that experience like?
I was it was interesting. I think a lot of it happened like it was kind of like post-traumatic stress
Hmm.
for me. Because a lot of times as entrepreneurs, we're so busy and we're moving so quickly that we bury all these things and just focus on always being in action. Like, let me be in action.
Yeah.
What's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the
Yep.
next thing?
Like a survival
And
instinct yes.
yeah, so that was like kind of that survivalist, like you're talking about, Luke. And I just was focusing on the solution,
Yep.
and not focusing on the problem, because I'm like, if I continue to focus on the problem, I
Yep.
will not be able to find the solution. I'll just get so angry and I'll brew. I'm
Hmm.
just going to hurt myself and hurt the business and also all the investors that
Yeah.
put money into Genius Juice.
Good point. All these people that trusted you. And so yeah, so in the moment it was just it was what it was. And it's it. Like I like to say the term the phrase it's all information. Okay, I received information. Now what are we gonna do? Let's go let's proceed. Wow. And with that experience, was that your biggest struggle of your career?
Um, I would say the biggest struggle, I would say that's a second. The biggest struggle to me is, in the last year and a half,
Okay.
in different ways, right? Like
Yeah.
we're still in the market as of now, but it's just been very, very difficult, inflationary,
Hmm.
hard to find capital. There's been other brands that have come out that are doing what we're doing now,
Hmm.
whether it's Trader Joe's, whether it's Harmless Harvest. I don't blame them. It's a great product. And I'm glad in a way that they're building that category. But,
You
you
started
know,
it.
yeah, I started it, that's
Hmm.
why, it's the genius idea of blending the entire coconut. But the reality sets in where it's really hard to compete with the big boys that have, a $10 million, $20 million marketing spend or more. And they can come out with new flavors whenever they want. And then they also, especially like Harmless Harvest, they just have
Hmm.
they have a relationship with different retailers by being in there for so many years and being a hot seller with
Yeah.
coconut water that they
And
can have a big line.
and they can
So
write big checks too. So yes.
yeah. And again, like I don't dislike competition. I think it's necessary in capitalism, but it's just the reality of this industry or most industries, but especially food and beverage, where if a company that's medium size sees a great idea, they can jump on that, and within 6 months, it could be on the market, and they could be competing with you,
Hmm.
and most likely competing with you at, a lower price point.
Yep.
So that's tip that to me in the last year
Hmm.
has been the biggest challenge for us. Just 4 or 5 different factors of
Hmm.
inflation, people not spending as much on luxury, discretionary income items, plus the competition, all these things combined, making it really hard to operate a CPG business in this environment.
It is the worst time ever right now. So yeah, so the hardest, not
Said that.
just
Yeah,
the most difficult. Yeah. Um, in terms of raising capital, and I know that you're helping a number of brands who are looking to raise capital now, which is, I think, so beautiful. Like you learned how to do something and now you're sharing that knowledge with other people. Um, could you share some of that journey of capital raising as much as you feel comfortable with?
sure. Well, as far as capital raising, I like to focus more on the like the online, like the crowdfunding side,
Mhm.
like you were mentioning earlier, Luke.
Yep.
And so back in 2020, we raised on WeFunder, which is one of my premier partners. We raised roughly about 467,000,
That's a
476,000.
lot of money. Good job.
Thanks. It was a lot of work. Nothing's ever easy, and crowdfunding is never easy to reach out to everyone. I even remember reaching out to you and like
Hmm.
everyone, texting, calling, getting anyone and everyone to put in some kind of money to build up your campaign and get momentum. And then a year later, I went on Republic,
Hmm.
which is also a great partner. They've kind of pivoted away from focusing on CPG as
Okay.
much. They still have some CPG brands on there, but not as many. And I raised about a million, 1.07 million on Republic. So
Beautiful.
so that helped me, and it was great because we got 3,000 new investors,
Yes.
but
And
it's a single
consumers too,
and
probably, right?
consumers,
Yes.
and it's a single line item on your cap table, which is
Yep.
also easy
Yep.
as a note. And so it's Reg CF regulation crowdfunding has come a long way to make it easier than ever to raise online. But what's hard is doing the work and getting out there. So about 7 months ago, so many people were reaching out to me, and I was doing it for free for about a year.
Hmm.
I just said, you know what? In this environment where CPG brands are having a hard time finding capital and raising money from VCs or from private equity or even angels, I should start helping people to raise some significant capital to stay in business and then grow.
Yep.
So I just felt the pain of everyone in CPG, and I said, I'm going to do something about this and also make some money on the side while doing this for what I know, right? And so I started consulting about 6, 7 months ago, just helping brands raise more so on WeFunder. I also help people on Start Engine or companies on Start Engine, also
Hmm.
Republic. And I've helped raise, I think up to now, again, I do it part-time, over $3.5 million between all
Wow.
these platforms. And
That's a
then
congratulations. That's huge.
yeah, I'm looking forward to getting to that 10 million mark. And then one of my clients, Painterland Sisters, they do this delicious.
I invested in that one in the most recent campaign.
Oh,
Yes.
nice.
Yes.
Thank you for that. Yeah, you
It's
should also
small.
connect with them about helping
Yeah,
them
I
maybe
will.
on the V driven side. And I can make that I can reconnect. I can reconnect.
Hey, you're
Um,
smooth. You're smooth, Alex.
yeah, but they're at 1.24 million. They just oversubscribed in their crowdfunding campaign round
Wow.
2 days ago. And they have like, as of this recording, they have like a week left. But that's like a huge
Wow.
success story. Two
Yes.
farmer women that are business women also.
Yes.
And they went from maybe we should do a crowdfunding campaign to help us because we did 1.3 million our first year. We're going to do 3 million our second year.
That's
I think
huge
we need
growth.
some capital to
Yes.
get this going. And I'm like, yeah, you definitely. And here they are, 7 months later and right over a million. So it's cool.
That's fantastic. Were you involved? Like I noticed all the marketing happening on LinkedIn around that. Is that being driven by you or did they hire like a media firm to help?
Yeah, so where I, not to turn this into an infomercial, but where I help is more so on the crowdfunding, building the crowdfunding page.
Got it.
I I'm a marketing guy. I'm a storyteller and a salesperson. That's really my core power and value.
Mm-hmm.
And so I help in number one, finding the right crowdfunding platform.
Mm-hmm.
I also set up their structure and their terms. Do you do a safe note? Do you do equity? Do you do convertible note?
Yep.
Do you do revenue share, profit share? And once I advise them on that, I literally build out the story with them and I help them with the images as well and make sure that the story is as compelling as possible so they can raise as much
Mm-hmm.
as possible and convert those visitors and followers over to investors, or I call them investimers, where they're investors and customers.
Yes, that's good. That's good.
So that's what I do, and yeah, I help maybe three brands at a time, small brands, larger brands, usually
Mhm.
sub 10 million though in revenue.
Well, I think what's beautiful here is that the work you're doing is based off of experience, of successful experience raising money, and that the this money being raised may not be the high amounts they are were it not for you and your experience. And what a way to give back. And I get it's I get that you're not just doing this for free like you were before, and you helped some of my brands out a couple of years ago, but you're still giving, and it's beautiful. I I wanted
Thank
to
you.
ask you about revenue share in terms of investing. I invested in about 12 CPG companies, no exits yet, and I noticed is it Shark Tank? I forget. Is it Mr. Wonderful? Is that his name? Who he's
Yeah,
always
the royalties and all that.
yes, yeah, yeah. So I'm curious your thoughts on that.
Well, little did you know you opened up a pretty big Pandora's box, which I'll again try to
And
hone in
that's
my
okay.
answer.
Great, great.
Revenue share, and this is like my buddy Justin Renfro, which I got to connect you guys. You would
Hmm.
vibe on this higher level. He lives in San Diego,
Okay.
and he's part of the biz dev team over at WeFunder. He's been there, I think, 5.5 years. He was the original guy that helped me with my campaign for
Hmm.
Genius Juice way back in 2019 and 2020. So he has been really pushing for brands to raise on revenue share, which is kind of like
Hmm.
a form of royalty.
Feels fair.
Say that again?
It feels fair because like
Feels
otherwise,
fair.
who
Yes,
knows when there's going to be an exit or if there will be an exit. This way, there's some return of capital, at a reasonable time frame.
exactly. So the way that you're exactly right, where CPG, it's like you said it, like it's just when is an exit going to happen? How successful will it be? Or is the company just going to continue operating for 20
Yeah,
years and you never get your money out, right?
right.
So revenue share has become more popular, and WeFunder is piercing that veil to get into crowdfunding revenue share, where there's a little bit of equity that you get just for lending the money to the
Hmm.
company. But then the company promises over every quarter to return a percentage of their revenue for that year. So, what's popular is like anywhere from 5%, 10% of their revenue, even smaller, but let's say 5%. So if you do $1 million in a year, you're returning $50,000 pro rata to your investors year by year by year. So over 4, 5, 6 years, eventually the investors will get a lion's share of their money back, plus they keep the equity.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's still kind of in its infancy right now, but I am going to advise one or two brands that's going to go rev share. The other thing that's happening too is that you still do your safe note or equity raise,
Yep.
but you have a kicker that says, oh, and on top of that, I'm going to give you 2% of revenue. It's not going to get your money back in 4 years, but it's going to get you some kind of return while you're waiting for the exit.
That's beautiful. Yeah, and it's the way it works, I believe, in a lot of property development funds. And I've invested in one, and every month I get a small check, which is beautiful. I still have my equity, so when there's an exit, I will get paid, and it feels good. And then they reached out last month and they wanted some more money. Like, hey, we have some more opportunities, and I'm feeling even more excited about that because I've already received back maybe 10% of my investment. So it's like it
Hmm.
feels good, right, as an
Yeah.
investor. So I
Yeah.
think I love that direction in terms of as I hopefully do have some exits and then reinvest that money. I think that'll be the path. That'll be that split. Okay. Well, I'm really curious what's going on with Genius Juice. Could you share like what the future looks like? What is the plan?
Yeah, there's a lot that I cannot say at this point, given that there's things in the works right now. So not to be too hush hush about it. But yeah, we're just working on ways to strengthen future partnerships to bring the smoothie back. I mean, that's the biggest thing I can share right now is that,
You're not being vulnerable, Alex.
yeah, like, seriously. There's always that line of vulnerability and and then only saying things once it's actually fact.
I like
So,
that.
but yeah, we want to bring our smoothie back.
Good.
That's a big thing
Thank
for our
you.
brand.
I miss it. My
Yeah,
life is not the same without it. So it's all on me, Alex. I need it. I need some.
totally,
Do
man.
a
And
special
like,
run for
no,
me.
seriously, just we'll call it the Luke run.
The
Just
Luke run.
it goes straight to it goes on a truck and drops the pallet off of your front door,
In
right?
Lucadia, California. That would be beautiful.
Cadia. Yeah. It's funny that it sounds like your name, Luke Cadia. That's funny.
Lucadia, that's true. That's why I picked it. Not humble at all. Not humble at all, Alex.
Hey, you got to flaunt it sometimes. So,
Right?
yeah, you're
Yes.
humble so much, you got to, balance that out a little bit.
Yes.
So, but yeah, that's the biggest thing we're focusing on. We have our shots in the market for now. We're just growing that very slowly.
Mhm.
And then we're looking at bringing the smoothie back at a basically an improved price point. And
Good.
that's what I can share for
That's going to be
now.
critical.
And just something that's a little more approachable to the common person. And, and that's basically it. So, but, as far as we're also looking at innovation,
Hmm.
we're looking at ways that we can include different formulations that are on trend with what's going on in the market.
Hmm.
But again, we're taking it slow. And the most important part is really finding the right partners to make this a reality. So, but for now, just status quo, and we're chugging along.
That's great. Thank you for the update on that. And then, I'm a proud supporter of CPG Vibes, and
Thank you.
just curious, what was the impetus for doing this? Did you envision doing it with Wade? I'm really curious about how this all got going.
Yeah, there's a little beeping sound in the background. Sorry about that.
No worries.
So, yeah, so the way that we actually kickstarted this, uh, and I remember, Wade shared some of the story as well on your previous episode,
Mhm.
plug to the Wade Yenny Reconnected the podcast with Wade Yenny as a guest,
Yes.
because it's a great episode that once you listen to mine, and ours, I should say, go over and listen to Wade's with Luke because it's a phenomenal episode. And you asked so many great questions that really opened up the vulnerability and the emotions with Wade, which I haven't seen that level even in all the times I've talked with him. So you really asked the right questions. So great work on that episode.
Thank you.
Um, so the way that it all came to be was I was running my other podcast, 15 Minutes of Genius,
I was on that one.
for yep, that you were on, and 2.5 years running. I don't really have any new episodes at this point. I'm really focused more on my consulting and also
Mhm.
CPG vibes. But essentially, I had Wade Yenny on as a guest because he was a buyer at Jimbo's in the past, as you know. And I said this would be a great guy to bring on, super, just honest and tells it like it is. And after we had our episode and I interviewed him, I said to myself, I'm like, man, like he's a really cool guy, and I think there might be something there. And so I started Friday Vibes. It used to be called Friday
Yep.
Vibes. And in my second episode or third, I brought him on as a guest. I was planning to do just me and bring on different guests
Yes.
for every episode and maybe have some reoccurring guests that I vibed with. And it was funny, we did our episode live and the entire episode never got aired. There was some disconnect, not a reconnect, a disconnect with the software. So we were on for an hour and 20 minutes and like about halfway through, we're like, I don't think this is recording and I don't think this is working anymore, but I'm enjoying this conversation, just talking with you. Let's keep this going. And we were like laughing about it. And at the very end, we're like, yeah, it didn't even make it to LinkedIn Live. But this is really cool. And we connect on so many levels. And I like the whole brand buyer
Hmm. Yeah. Dynamic.
dynamic.
Yes.
And so from there, I think I just asked him, do you want to be my permanent co-host? Because I really enjoyed, doing that show with you that never got aired. And then he said, absolutely, I'm down.
Hmm.
And it was just very effortless. It just flowed. And we're
Yes.
now, we've done 2 years of the show together. We just celebrated episode 100, as you saw. And also thank you to Be Driven for being our ongoing sponsor
Of
as well.
course.
So
Of
we
course. We
appreciate
love you guys.
what you're doing. Thank you. Yeah, love you too. And that's a story.
I love it. And if you think about like is there some bigger purpose, or what are you trying to accomplish? What is the purpose around this?
Yeah, CPG domination. No, we just want to, I think there's twofold. One is that the show can become, I think, a bigger version of what it is now, which is
Hmm.
helping in all areas of CPG to all entrepreneurs and just getting anyone and everyone who runs a CPG business or is part of a CPG business to tune in. And so we want to build a bigger community at the end of the day and have more people that
Mm.
get something out of it, get benefits out of it. They learn something from us talking, they learn something from our guests, they learn something from the shout outs. And we also like to make it live because we're on the spot, right?
Yep.
We're on the spot for an hour doing it live, and you can't take anything back that you say. But we can also so that's the challenge. It's hard, right? You have to really be present to what you're saying and how you're being. But then the benefit is you can interact with people in real time. So people
Hmm.
that are asking questions or shout outs. Then of course we have sponsors that if they want to pay a nominal fee, they can come on and we can promote them.
Hmm.
And I think the biggest thing for us is we want to get sorry, the count up for people that are on live.
Yeah.
So that's a big focus of ours. Like we're usually averaging, like the most we've done is maybe 60, 70, but usually we're at 30, 40, 50.
Hmm.
Sometimes once we were over 100 for Miyoko's episode.
Wow.
But like we want to get to that point where we're bringing on even more influential people.
Hmm.
That's going to get major ratings. And the more people that are on, there's going to be more community, more
Yep.
people talking to each other, more shout outs, more of us talking about new brands that we've discovered that we love. And we can get the word out for a small brand that's looking to get some exposure. So we want to support the community, but also on the selfish side, me and Wade just want to blow this up and become, a big fixture in the CPG community for our career as well.
Great. I think the creating this space and this community and doing it is such an extension of your personality. And I guess both of your personalities, which makes sense because you're the host. But it's there's learning, there's fun, there's joy, there's play, it feels so perfect of a kind of a venue to be in at the end of a week, right? In this business. I sometimes it's like this week with fancy food, and I was out at Sprouts in Phoenix this week. It's like so nice to come into a weekend, and this is kind of like that transition phase is like
Mhm.
CPG vibes. Does that feel right to you? Does that resonate?
Yeah, I mean, you said it really well, where it's a way to recap the week and relax and get some laughs and entertainment and the banter between us and learn a lot too. So I think, yeah, we all you work so hard.
Hmm.
We work hard, but you've been traveling. So it's good to have that reprieve and that relaxation while still being involved in the CPG community.
Yeah, yeah, and connecting with other people. And for me, that for the reason I'm still here 30 years in is that community, right? It's like a family, and the only way you really leave, I think, is in a casket. So I'd prefer to delay that as long as we can and enjoy it while I'm here. I This last part of our conversation, we talked a lot and alluded to just the themes of how difficult it is in building a brand, and it's gotten harder with the capital constraints and that have really, if you think about it, it's affected the brands, but there's also been changes in the market dynamics, right? There's so much more competition. There used to be like Supernatural, Whole Foods, crossover natural would be like a Sprouts and conventional, and they're all becoming one. They're all re-itemizing very similarly, right? And so their struggle there. Their struggle with distribution, where they started doing these programs that were below their cost, and they're trying to figure out like how do we survive and keep these channels distribution open. And a big part of the Reconnected podcast is really talking to very experienced people like you, to think about how we do this better. And I'm curious if what comes to mind is from your roles that you played in this space, um, what are maybe a couple key things that come to mind about that you would like to see this change in the future to make this a better place, a better world?
Yeah, I mean, I think in general, it's a really hard question because like there's things I want to see happen, and I'm like asking myself, will it ever happen?
Hmm.
Will the small guy have a higher chance of actually winning?
Yeah.
And like I don't know what that answer is right now because it's really uncertain, to be completely honest. Will more and more businesses succeed?
Hmm.
Like if 100 businesses, 100 CPG brands start, instead of having one succeed over 2 years, can we have five succeed or
Right.
10 succeed?
Improve
So
the odds.
higher chance of success. And then like just seeing distributors and retailers be more on the side of the brands,
Hmm.
because like these retailers, especially, I mean, they're depending on innovation. They're depending
Yep.
on
For differentiation. Yes.
differentiation. So
Yep.
like, when Olipop came out, I mean, imagine if there was five Olipops or 10 Olipops that were coming out.
Yeah.
There could be that, but these small brands again are up against the wall and don't have a high chance of success. So I think the model to me is somewhat broken on the
Hmm.
distribution side for national distributors,
Yep.
where again we need them. We need national distribution in 400 stores or 500 stores, but
Yep.
the way their fees are, the way their chargebacks are, the fact that there's a lawsuit going on right now,
I
which,
heard. I heard this week about the lawsuit.
which I won't mention who it is, but you can
Yeah.
Google, and the fact is that this is kind of there's a reckoning which is slowly happening where these companies are being called out to improve their practices and procedures,
Yep.
better serve the smaller brands, but the brand in the lawsuit's not a small brand. They just
No.
said
They had the
we have.
money. They had the money to do the lawsuit. So,
Exactly. So they have
uh, yeah.
they're calling them out on what they're doing, and hopefully
Yep.
that cascades to distributors and retailers treating smaller brands better and not taking as much money and crushing margins.
Right. It's interesting, right? And your themes resonate with me and with all the emerging brands that I work with as well, and I think with retailers and distributors. I think we all recognize that the current system, while it is the market, right? This is the market norm, is how the larger players operate today, right? It is they it's the same wherever you go in the national distributor side, in my opinion. I don't think anyone is better than the other. And from day to day, it can switch. I get that, but it's usually over a year. It's kind of the same place. I think where I struggle with what's happening today is when a emerging brand is signing up with a national distributor, they have no way of understanding what it means. They have no context. And there's in my mind, it would be maybe a couple ideas I have, and maybe we can talk about them a little bit. Number one would be a video created by a national distributor that says, "Hey, let's go through the contract together. We'll explain to you what this means, right? And how here's an example of how this is going to play out, right? And just really just go deep into it to help them understand what they're signing. They're probably not going to negotiate, so there's not a lot of risk in just explaining to people what they're signing because if you're signing up with the Sprouts, you have to use KeHE. If you're signing up with Whole Foods, you have to use Unify. At least if you could level the playing field of knowledge and allowing the brand to know what they're signing. And then the other idea to me is that, hey, if a distributor needs to make 7 to 10% on the buy side in order to be profitable, I don't think distributors are getting rich. Unify, earnings calls haven't been that good lately, right?
Mhm.
It's could we just have at like an ongoing OI that you just know what it is, and there's no more deductions, right? Or very few deductions. It's 7% at the bottom of every check that they send you, and you know what it is. You can plan for it, you can budget for it, and you're not surprised um, in terms of the distributor specific fees, right? The cost of doing business there, not like promos that have to be billed back through as an OI or an MCB. But I'm curious how that resonates with you.
Yeah.
Those two ideas.
I mean, amen. I think that, it should be a flat fee, to
Yep.
do
Yep.
business. And
Why
because,
not? Right?
you're right. I mean,
Yeah. Yep.
predictable revenue, predictable chargeback. You
Yep.
budget it in to your P&L projections. And so you're like, okay, if I sell to Whole Foods or whoever I sell to, I'm going to be getting 5 to 7% off the top
Yep.
every time. But it becomes challenges where new fees get introduced, right?
Yes.
And so, so now you're basically like, okay, I'm doing business and I'm 30% of my revenues from this retailer.
Hmm.
Wow, there's a merchandising fee now
Yes.
for
Yes.
3% or 4%. Where did that come from? And like you have to accept
Right.
it. So the other thing that honestly pissed me off was, talking about anger, right?
Right.
Is like they're changing their net terms for payment. Like I looked at I have a client remain nameless that they're signing up with Unify. They're going
Yep.
from a regional to national.
Yep.
And so I looked at the contract because I haven't seen one in a couple of years, and I thought I was reading it wrong. I'm like, do I have dyslexia? Did I read the numbers wrong? Because it's like we pay you 2% net 30 now instead of net 10. And then I think it's net 40 or net 50. And I'm like, the smaller brands can't float
Hmm.
because also it's net 30, net 40, but then it takes another 10 days for it to actually arrive
Well,
sometimes.
to clarify, it's not from if you're pickup FOB your dock. That clock doesn't start until it
They
gets
receive it.
received and put away, right? So it could be 60 days, 55 days before you get
Yeah.
paid.
If
Yeah,
they pay on time, on
if they
top
pay
of
on
that,
time, right? Right.
and I've gotten 2% deductions when I get paid in 40 days when it's supposed to be 10 days. Like I've had
Yes.
that happen. So there needs to be some oversight and accountability to getting paid on time. And if they don't pay you on time, there needs to be penalties put in that contract. If we don't pay you, if you don't get a check, if the product arrives and at the time it arrives at our warehouse and we have the BOL, there's a
Yeah.
BOL to prove that or a proof of shipment and it's delivered. 30 days, you get paid. If you get paid in 35 days, there's a fee. You get paid in 45 days, there's a bigger fee.
Oh,
Get paid in
interesting.
29 days, you're good. Like something like that needs to happen. But the issue is these distribution companies are not earning enough from their freight. You said it earlier.
Yeah.
So they got to find other profit centers
Yep.
to make money.
Yes.
And they've said that openly,
Well,
right?
yeah, and it is the truth, right? When you're seeing, and we're all kind of generally aware that programs for retailers today are generally between 6 and 9, 10% for the larger retailers, right? In terms of markup from the distributor to the retailer,
Not enough.
right? And look at Unify's financials and what their operational costs are, right? Because they're a public company, we can see this. It doesn't make sense. And so at some point they'll be selling below their invoice cost or something from the manufacturer because it's continuing to play this game. It the end doesn't feel good. And so, part of this too would be, at some point distributors being able, and this, I don't know if they'll ever have the power to work with retailers on having programs that truly are profitable on the sell, right? When they're selling to the retailer, when you're trying to make your profit on the buy side, it really creates perverse incentives for the distributor in terms of where you focus your time and attention, right? It becomes, to your point, how do I find the next pinprick area to get money to help fill the
Mhm.
gap from the fact that we're selling below our cost? So I don't know. I'm glad that we took some space to discuss this. Do you have any other thoughts on this? And before we kind of move on.
Yeah, I mean, just to support the community, the shout outs that I want to make are to High Touch,
Hmm.
to there's other companies like Seacoast, there's also LAD,
Yes, Val. Yes.
Val, LAD, Rich.
Yeah.
You have the coffee distributors, you have Beyond the Grind, you
Yep.
have Shoreline, you have Rainforest out in New York.
Yes. How about
Um,
Chex? They don't do refrigerated, but they are an amazing distributor.
Checks.
And
Yep.
even GFI, which is getting more and more into center store CPG as well. The cost of doing business is so much less than the bigger guys. And GFI is a national company, so it can be done.
It can be done. And like basically you pay 20 to 25 points for them to distribute, but
Mhm.
that's your only cost. And so
Yep.
you can bake that into your projections and you can say, listen, I know I sell for a buck to Unify, let me sell for a buck, whatever.
Mhm.
Or you bake that in and say, I need to sell higher because there's a bigger cut,
Yeah.
or something. So there's ways to like, I know that
Figure.
you have to be also legal in this whole thing,
Yep.
but definitely ways to to balance your sheet to say, I'm going to make sure that if I'm getting 20, they're getting 25 points, I'm still getting my profit. I'm
Yep.
going to make this much per unit
Yep.
when I sell to them, and that's never going to change. And working with High Touch for now 9 years
Hmm.
with Czar and James and Chuck, they've only paid late once in
Hmm.
10 years. And the time that it was late is because the check got intercepted and lost.
Yeah.
Someone opened the check and tried to cash it, right?
Yeah.
And the only chargebacks they've ever had is like $15 to freight some of it to Arizona to
Hmm.
their distribution center. I'm like, $15 for a chargeback? I mean, I see tens of thousands of chargebacks and dollars
Hmm.
from the big guys for
Right.
things that don't even make sense to me.
Right. Agreed. Agreed. Deb Conklin, the new leader or newer leader at KeHE, I've had a conversation with her, and I admire what she's trying to do, because in a way, if you think about all these smaller distributors that we named here, they're not locked in this like head-to-head race like there is between Unify and KeHE, and they effectively are the market for national distribution in America today. The way that it's set up, the market for that today is they operate below their costs. They have these different areas of deductions, and if you start trying to change that, there's a lot of risks, right? In terms of like their current contracts and the programs, and but I sense that change is coming, and at least in the terms of this of how would you say, like transparency, I sense that's coming down the road, whether that's from lawsuits or new leaders like Deb Conklin coming into the space. I think we're going to see it. And then I also want to remind myself. I have to remind myself. Like, we may be frustrated with these large distributors, but there's a lot. I mean, thousands and thousands of really good people that work for Unify and KeHE that have the best of intentions, right? And yeah, I'm sure you've worked with many of them through your time, Alex. That there's a lot of good people out there, and KeHE is a company, but it's also people, real people with families and dreams, and who also care. Does that
Yeah.
resonate?
Yeah. I mean, I would say like it's never 100% and nothing's 100% bad at all.
Right.
There's always good things to every company. So I think just the change needs to come from the top,
Yep.
where someone at the top works with the board, works with,
Yep.
their management team and says, here's what we do, here's what we need to do to restructure this to be more fair to the common, everyday,
Or to all
small,
brands, or to
all
all brands,
brands.
right? It
Yeah,
affects it affects everybody. It affects emerging brands even more. But
true,
I think we all believe there's a better way. And
true.
my I think in terms of like how you and I can show up, I think it's like with a curiosity, with a challenger energy, right? And using the platforms we have to help bring about positive change that benefits this whole industry, which I think feels like I think our purposes are pretty aligned. Like we really want to see a better day for this industry.
100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that said, I would add gratitude to you for being here today. I'm really grateful for you to be the first brand that we ever had on the Reconnected podcast.
Thank you.
It means a
Yeah.
lot to me. I appreciated you saying yes when I asked you, and I also want to thank you for the gift that you are to our industry. You've been a gift to my brands, to me. I've seen so many people who have been influenced and encouraged and supported and given new ideas because of who you are, how you show up, and how you give so freely to our industry. And I'm grateful for you, and thankful for all that you do.
Oh, well, thank you, Luke. Yeah, yeah, just soaking that in, man, and feeling the love. Thank you, everything you do, and yeah, I think just being in this industry, working with people, partners like you, knowing someone like you really makes it worthwhile. Just to like brings a lot more purpose and meaning to what we do on an everyday basis. And, supporting the community and not just having, oh, how much do I get paid in mind, but really how can I help? And then the money
Mhm.
follows from
Yep.
love and
Yep.
support. Having that mindset like you have and like what I'm striving to do every day makes a huge difference. So yeah, we can't do it alone. We're not
Mm-mm.
alone, and
That's right.
you need a lot of help in this business, a lot of help to be successful, and you're helping that.
Right on. Well, we both are. And with that, I will bid you adieu. Thank you so much, and have a great weekend.
You too. Thank you, Luke, and have fun watching the football games if you
I
watch.
will. I will. Thanks, Alex.
Take care.
Let's see. Let's see.